the arrow lands before the scream does. A Roman soldier collapses into the mud beside the Danube, one hand pressed hard against his side as blood forces itself through his fingers. Around him, the battle moves on without pause. Shields crash together, horses tear through broken lines, iron strikes wood and bone, and orders vanish beneath the noise of panic. In most ancient armies, this moment needed no explanation. If you were wounded badly enough to fall, your war was over. Not always instantly. Sometimes death came slowly, blood loss in the dirt, fever days later, infection creeping through an untreated wound, a shattered limb left twisted until the body failed. Ancient warfare killed many men with steel, but it killed countless more afterward through neglect. That was the accepted rule of the ancient world. Commanders focused on victory in front of them, not the wounded behind them. Once the formation advanced, the injured were often abandoned where they fell. If they survived until night, it was luck. If they healed, it was rare. Rome rejected that waste. While the fighting still raged along the riverbank, movement began behind the front ranks. Men assigned for a different purpose entered the chaos, searching for survivors. A wounded legionary was lifted by the shoulders, dragged clear of trampling feet, then carried towards safety, while another soldier stepped forward to close the gap. The line reformed almost immediately. Battle continued as if nothing had happened, but something important had happened. Rome had planned for casualties before the first sword was drawn. This was one of the least visible strengths of the legion. Enemies feared Roman shields, formations, discipline, and relentless drilling. Yet beneath all of that stood something even more dangerous: organization. Rome understood that a soldier was not merely a body and armor. He was training, wages, equipment, experience, and future military value. A trained legionary could take years to create. To lose such a man after battle from a treatable wound was not tragedy in Roman eyes. It was inefficiency, and Rome had little patience for inefficiency. Rome's military medicine did not emerge from compassion, and it did not emerge by chance. It grew from the same principle that shaped Roman roads, forts, taxes, and armies. Disorder wastes resources. In much of the ancient world, healing still belonged partly to temples, ritual, and prayer. A man recovered because the gods favored him. A man died because they did not. Rome tolerated belief, but on-campaign belief could not stop bleeding, set bones, or return soldiers to the line. The army needed results. So medicine inside the legions became practical, structured, and ranked like everything else. Closest to battle were the capsari, battlefield attendants named after the capsa, the cylindrical case that carried their bandages and tools. They moved through mud, arrows, and panic to slow bleeding, bind wounds, and drag the injured alive from the field. In modern terms, they were combat medics centuries before the title existed. Behind them stood the medicus ordinarius, the professional doctor attached to the unit. He was not a wandering healer or village herbalist. He held recognized status within the army and was often freed from ordinary drills because his value lay elsewhere. He examined injuries, directed treatment, and decided which men could recover. Above him was the medicus legionis, chief physician of the legion. At this level, medicine became administration. Supplies had to be managed, staff organized, standards maintained across thousands of men. Other armies had healers. Rome built a system. It also absorbed Greek knowledge from figures like Hippocrates, then applied it through discipline and scale. Where others preserved ideas, Rome embedded them into the machinery of war. That was the Roman advantage. Once Rome decided wounded soldiers were worth saving, another problem followed immediately. A man dragged alive from the battlefield still needed somewhere to recover. Barracks were crowded and dirty. Tents offered little protection from cold, rain, or disease. Improvised care wasted time, supplies, and lives. So Rome built the valetudinarium, the military hospital. This was one of the quietest revolutions of the ancient world. Inside forts and frontier bases stood dedicated medical buildings designed for recovery rather than display. They were not monuments. They were functional machines built to restore manpower. Most followed a practical layout, rectangular structures with corridors arranged for movement and supervision. In the center was often an open courtyard that brought light and fresh air into the building.
What's happening out there?
To modern eyes, this seems ordinary. In the ancient world, it was intelligent design. Patients were commonly placed in smaller rooms, rather than one crowded hall. Rome did not understand bacteria, but it understood patterns. Too many sick men in one space meant more fever, slower healing, and unnecessary death. Smaller wards limited disorder and reduced the spread of illness. Water systems mattered just as much. Many hospitals had access to running water and drainage, keeping waste away from the wounded. Some also contained an armamentarium, a storage room for medicines, oils, bandages, and surgical tools. Notice what Rome had created: dedicated wards, ventilation, cleaner water, organized storage, controlled recovery. This was more than shelter. It was institutional medicine built into the army itself. A hospital without instruments is only shelter. Rome understood that buildings and clean water could preserve the wounded, but only skilled hands with proper tools could return them to service. This is where Roman medicine becomes surprisingly modern. Archaeologists have uncovered surgical kits containing scalpels, forceps, hooks, probes, clamps, cautery tools, and finely made needles that would not look entirely out of place today. The striking detail is not simply that such tools existed, but that they were specialized. These were not crude blades grabbed in desperation. They were designed for recurring problems. Rome approached surgery the same way it approached engineering. If an injury happened often enough, it deserved a practical solution. Consider the battlefield arrow. In many ancient wars, the arrowhead was deadliest after impact. Barbed tips tore flesh when pulled backward, while broken shafts left metal deep inside muscle. For many armies, removal meant brute force and luck. Roman surgeons developed something better. The spoon of Diocles was a device created to guide and remove embedded arrowheads, while reducing further damage to surrounding tissue. It was a remarkably intelligent answer to a common military wound. Some procedures went further. Roman doctors performed trepanation, opening the skull to relieve pressure after head trauma, or remove damaged fragments. It sounds brutal, yet excavated skulls show healed bone around these openings, meaning some patients survived. Pain was managed with mixtures of wine, opium, and mandrake. It was not modern anesthesia, but it could dull suffering enough to make treatment possible. Roman surgery remained dangerous and limited by its age. But compared with many rivals, Rome chose intervention over helplessness. Rome's greatest medical advantage was not its buildings or its tools. It was repetition. Campaign after campaign produced the same wounds: sword cuts, spear punctures, broken limbs, crushed bones, head trauma, infected gashes that followed every march. Roman doctors saw these injuries constantly, which meant they could compare outcomes, refine methods, and remember what worked. This is how medicine often begins, not with theory, but with patterns. They cleaned wounds with acetum, vinegar. Roman physicians did not know chemistry or bacteria, yet they recognized that injuries washed this way often healed better and smelled less foul. Results were enough. They may not have understood the cause, but they understood the effect. Honey was used in dressings for similar reasons. It protected damaged tissue, reduced corruption, and helped wounds close more cleanly. Again, no microscopes, no laboratories. Only repeated observation across hundreds of cases. Food was treated as part of recovery. A man weakened by blood loss or fever could not be fed like a marching soldier. Broths, grains, and lighter meals restored strength without exhausting the body. Some hospitals likely maintained dedicated kitchens because nutrition was considered practical medicine. Even rest became calculated policy. Return a soldier too early, and he collapsed or reopened the wound. Keep him too long, and he consumed supplies while another man carried his burden. Recovery had to be measured carefully. This was Roman pragmatism at its purest. Not mercy, not cruelty. Efficiency shaped by experience. Over time, thousands of injuries became thousands of lessons and better odds of survival for the next man carried in from battle. How do we know these methods truly worked? Because Rome's dead still answer. Across the old frontiers of the empire, from Britain to the Danube to the deserts of the East, archaeologists have uncovered military cemeteries filled with remains that tell a story no chronicler could invent. Skeletons bear deep sword cuts that later healed cleanly. Broken arms and legs fused back together in usable alignment. Skull fractures show clear regrowth of bone. Arrow wounds, closed long before death, came from some later illness or another battle. These men were not simply wounded, they survived. And that matters because bone is one of the most honest witnesses in history. Writers exaggerate victories. Emperors glorify their reigns. Poets turn defeat into legend. But healed trauma cannot flatter anyone. If a skull shows bone regrowth after a fracture, the man lived. If a shattered arm healed straight enough to function, someone stabilized it. If a deep blade wound closed without killing its victim, bleeding was controlled, and infection either prevented or overcome. That is physical evidence of treatment. When such cases appear once, they may be luck. When they appear repeatedly across Roman military sites, they suggest something larger. Not isolated skill, not chance survival, a pattern, a system. Rome's endless warfare created a brutal advantage few civilian communities could match: repetition. Frontier doctors treated the same injuries again and again. Cuts from swords, punctures from spears, arrow wounds, smashed limbs, head trauma, camp infections. Every campaign became another season of practical education. Methods could be compared. Mistakes were remembered. Useful treatments spread. A village healer might see a serious skull injury once in years. A military physician could see several in one campaign. That difference accelerates knowledge. One of the clearest examples was Galen. Before becoming one of the most influential medical writers in history, Galen gained experience treating severe trauma and complex injuries. His later texts shaped medical thought for more than 15 centuries across Europe and the Mediterranean world. Even when later generations corrected some of his theories, The scale of his influence remained immense, and part of that authority came from practice. Rome's army had become a laboratory without ever using the word. There were no microscopes, no sterile theaters, no controlled trials in the modern sense. Yet observation, repetition, comparison, and accumulated experience were happening constantly. Which wounds healed fastest? Which procedures were worth the risk? Which camp conditions spread disease? Which men could return to duty? War forced answers quickly. This is one of history's darker truths. Organized violence often accelerates organized knowledge. Rome's cemeteries therefore reveal more than suffering. They reveal adaptation, learning, and a state increasingly skilled at keeping damaged men alive. The soldiers buried there were casualties of empire, but they were also proof that the empire learned how to save many who should have died. In the end, Rome did not build its medical system because it loved soldiers. It built it because soldiers were expensive. A legionary was not easily replaced. Before he ever entered battle, the state had already invested years in him. Recruitment, drilling, weapons training, endurance marches, discipline, pay, armor, transport, and the slow creation of unit cohesion. By the time a man stood steady in formation, he represented time, money, and experience that could not be recreated quickly. To lose such a soldier after battle, not to an enemy sword, but to infection, neglect, or a badly managed wound, was waste. And Rome hated waste. A veteran carried instincts no new recruit possessed. He knew how to march for days without breaking. He knew how to hold formation when cavalry struck. He knew how to obey under fear, how to steady younger men when the line began to shake, how to survive chaos without panic. One experienced legionary could be worth more than several untested replacements. Healing him was faster than replacing him. So Rome invested accordingly. It organized battlefield evacuation. It assigned trained medics. It built hospitals inside forts. It stocked supply rooms with tools and medicines. It developed sanitation systems, recovery spaces, and procedures for returning men to duty. None of this was sentimental. It was strategic calculation. The same empire that built roads to move armies and granaries to feed them also built systems to repair them. Medicine became part of military logistics, as necessary as armor or grain. That is why Roman medicine matters. Not because it was gentle by modern standards. It was often painful, dangerous, and limited. Not because it cured everything. It did not. But because Rome transformed healing from scattered craft into organized state function. Even today, we still recognize the pattern. Battlefield medics who stabilize casualties near combat zones, triage systems that prioritize treatment, hospitals divided into wards, supply chains for instruments and drugs, rehabilitation before return to duty. These ideas evolved over centuries, but their logic would have been familiar to Rome. Empires are usually remembered for what they destroyed. Cities burned, enemies crushed, borders redrawn. Yet some of their deepest legacies come from what they were forced to preserve. In trying to keep soldiers alive for the next campaign, Rome helped lay foundations that later civilizations would expand into the modern hospital. Somewhere beside the Danube, a wounded soldier expected to die in the mud. He was carried from the field, stitched beneath lamplight, fed until strength returned, and sent back into history. Not because Rome was merciful, because Rome decided he was worth saving.